Welcome to A Mindful Life. We're out here today with another video in the Endless Being series. Now, the last series I talked about state of being. And remember, state of being is a thought, an emotion, and a body state. We want to be aware of what the state of beings are. Consciousness helps us to do this. We become conscious by meditation. Meditation is anything we do to achieve a quiet mind. Anything. Prayer, riding a bike. Now, I want to talk about these cycles that we can get into that we don't want. Trauma. Negative cycles that happen over and over again. And we don't understand why the same thing is happening again. We blame ourselves, but most of the time we blame the situation, especially if we think we've done everything that we should do to make it work, like a bad relationship, one bad romance after the other, financial difficulties. You had money, now you don't have it anymore. Nothing's got built, etc. We could go down the list. How does these things keep happening? I'm going to say they're from unawareness, being unconscious when it comes to state of being. Now, states of being carry narratives. We say it's a thought, a feeling, a body state. That's a nice general way of saying it. There's a narrative that spins in the mind in a situation that feels right. This narrative feels like, yes, I need to say this. They're wrong. I can't believe how they're like this. And I've done this. So I've got to give them a piece of my mind. That's a state of being. It comes with an emotion and a body state. Now, I'm talking about scenarios in our lives that happen over and over again that, truthfully, if we were to really be honest about this, we don't want this. It's not what we want. We want prosperity. We want love. We want empowerment, harmony, compatibility. But these states of being lead to the opposite: disharmony, suffering, struggle, conflict. And not conflict in a good way, because there is a good type of conflict, a good type of meeting. But we're not talking about that in this video. Understand that when we are acting out of a state of being, it brings a narrative, right? The narrative matches with its emotion. If you're going to give them a piece of your mind and they need to know what's up, how does that feel? There's a body state also that goes with this. There's a body state that goes with this emotion of anger or resentment. Now, it would seem like this is what you should do because this is true. This is real. Like I said in the last video, stop keeping it real. It would seem like that's what you need to do. But if you really get into your heart space and you ask yourself the question, is this really what you want? Is this really the outcome that you want, the life that you want? Is this scenario that keeps repeating? You say you choose bad partners over and over again. Really? Have you ever considered that there is a narrative in your mind that's leading to that outcome? And that narrative in your mind fits with you having so-called bad partners. That emotion fits with that. Birds of a feather flock together. Now think of these states of being, like I told you before, as a thought, a feeling, a body state that come in, click in, and it becomes you. You give voice to that state of being. You give action to that state of being. Do you really think those actions and those words are too much different than that state of being? I don't think so. They all match. The state of being and the narrative matches the actions and the words and the outcome and the cycle. How do we get out of this? I'm going to give you a good example of what it means to be conscious, because you hear this a lot. I'm conscious. Consciousness is awareness, but let me give you something real simple. You're in grade school, 5th grade. You brush your teeth, you go to school. Your friend in first period class says, hey, you got some toothpaste on your face right there. Now, you went to school, you did everything at school. You were smiling and talking to people. Nobody said anything except this one classmate said, listen, you got some toothpaste right here. Now you're aware of it. Oh man, wow, I didn't know that. You take your phone, you look, oh wow, I didn't see that. You become conscious now. Your consciousness level has increased about that. You've become aware. This is a very simple example of consciousness. And to become conscious of what the narrative is in the mind is also a new level of consciousness. You see, these narratives are so comfortable to us because we've been using them for years. It feels like we're keeping it real. It feels like we're being honest. It feels like we're telling the truth. We're spinning a narrative. Let me give you an example of this difference that consciousness brings. Picture a room with a green wall and there's a green chair. They're both the exact same color of green. There are no shadows in the room. It's not the easiest thing to be able to tell the difference between the two. You know that, right? Especially if you're at a distance. Not so easy to tell the difference between the chair and the wall because they're exactly the same color and there are no shadows in the room. It's just like out here in nature, we have camouflage. So many animals are like the same tone as the dirt or the trees. So we can't really tell the difference. We have to look for a minute to tell the difference. But now let's take this wall and let's start to move it to hot colors. So let's start to move it to orange and yellow. Now that chair is starting to really, really stick out. And we move that wall to a red color. Now we've got that contrast. There's a powerful contrast between the chair and the wall. We can see the difference far away. Far away, we can see the difference. This is what happens with consciousness. As we become conscious or aware, when states of being come and bringing their narrative, their body state, and the emotion, we're able to actually see them. We're able to see them with the inner eye. Remember, I talked about the big eye before. So we're able to see, whoa, wait a minute. I can feel that narrative moving. And there's an emotion with it. It feels anger. And there's a body state. I'm tense. I'm feeling things in my stomach happen. Butterflies. I feel like my heart is in my throat. We're able to actually see these, and we're actually able for the first time to realize that that state of being is not us. See, these narratives come in and they make sense. But I'm telling you today, and we're talking about traumatic experiences repeating themselves. I'm telling you this. They only feel right because we're comfortable with them. They're not the truth. They're not, quote unquote, right. Now, let me say this about these states of being. We're not here to dismiss a state of being, especially when it comes to trauma. We're not here to vilify a state of being, condemn or reject a state of being. Oftentimes, these states of being have come up through rejection in the first place. So why would we reject it and say, well, that narrative is going to lead me to more suffering, so I reject it? No. Add compassion to this. Embrace that because emotionally, because that has become a part of you that has been hurt. And give it love, give it compassion, give it awareness. Don't reject it. Oh, that's a negative state of being. That's a negative thought narrative. It's going to lead to this and that. No, no. Don't reject it. Don't give it more rejection. Just like don't give it more fuel through action and words, but don't give it more rejection. Understand and embrace that. You were hurt. This came about probably as a way to defend yourself, probably as a way in which you knew or picked up from the environment to keep yourself safe. But we've seen that this leads to the same thing because birds of a feather flock together. The narrative matches the outcome. The emotion matches the narrative. The body state matches the emotion, which matches the outcome. So it keeps going over and over again. Now, many of these states of being come from the environment, the atmosphere, the culture, what we hear on the news, what we hear people saying. This is how you deal with this. A lot of these states of being, the ways in which we describe our life and how we're going to do things and go about things, were given to us unaware before we could filter them, and even before consciousness. Now, I don't mean consciousness like being alive, or I mean like now. We can pick up states of being right now in unconsciousness that are based in fear, as you see that's happening in the world. There's a lot of narratives, a lot of states of being that have been deployed, and it leads to a lot of negative cycles. But a lot of these things we got from people we know. But you know what? Really? It doesn't so much matter where they came from. The question is, does this lead to what I want? Does this lead to the life that I want to live? Based on the way this feels, based on the narrative I hear spinning in my head that keeps coming up and spinning in my head, does this lead to an outcome that I want? Let me not make an excuse for it. Go by how it feels. Your emotions tell you a lot about the nature of what's going on with you. We come into awareness and we are able to see these narratives, these states of being, these emotions, body states for the first time, not being who we are. And that is the breakthrough. The breakthrough is understanding that, I can choose a different narrative. I can choose to feel a different way, to think a different way. Yes, I feel this narrative come up that leads to conflict and suffering. It makes me feel good, but only because I'm so comfortable with it. But to be honest with you, this cycle keeps happening, and I really want this. So what state of being can I get in to get to that place? Becoming conscious and becoming aware with the Spirit of God and all that you have become is enough. Becoming conscious in league with the Spirit of God, the Most High, and all that you have become and are is enough. See, these narratives and these emotions and body states are festering, and we're almost waiting for that situation to come up so we can do what we need to do, right? That will not lead you to the outcome you really want. And that's what I've been saying in this video. But what will? You are already enough to have the life you want. You're already enough and in league with the Most High. You're already enough. But the state of being would have you think, no, I've got to worry. I've got to think about this. I got to prepare. What if they do this? Then I got to do this. And what if they do this? Listen, if you focus on what you really want, you don't have time for that. If you focus on the goodness and the power and the prosperity of where God is leading you to. You don't have to go through all of this strategy against nonsense. Now, I'm just trying to be as blunt as I can. You don't have to go through all of that strategy. If your mind is in the goodness of God, in the promises of God, you don't have to spin this to protect yourself because they might do this and I need to do that. And what if they do this and then I'm going to. Your mind is so much in the goodness and the power and the growth of your life that you don't even notice that anymore. And it starts to fade away. It starts to fade away. It loses its power. Think about this. It loses its power because your focus and your emotions are over in the growth, not in the nonsense. So now what's happened is you have a different thing going on. You have you don't have the narrative and the emotion and body state that reproduces that same cycle over and over again. If you go here and you get into that and you start strategizing and you're fired up, you feel those chemicals being released in your body, they're making your stomach queasy and you feel like your heart is in your throat and all of that. If you're in that place, you're giving that life. See, you're giving it life. You're Dr. Frankenstein. Dr. Frankenstein, that's what you become. You're creating a monster that you don't want. So become conscious, and consciousness comes from meditation. Meditation is any activity that you do that brings you into a quiet mind. Could be prayer. Now you can have an intention before you go into the meditation. I'm going to pray. I want to connect with God. This is a meditation that has an intention to it. But you can just meditate by anything you do that brings you into a quiet mind. All right? So go back and watch this video again, because to become conscious is to become aware. States of being with their narratives or thoughts or narratives that spin want to have a voice. They want to have action. When you give action and a voice to just a narrative in your head that's based on a traumatic cycle, you repeat the cycle, you give the cycle life. Better to focus on the growth and the prosperity and the excitement. Feel excitement even in the midst of trauma about this other side, about the light and where God is pulling you to. Because God is always pulling you to the light. And feel that excitement. It won't make sense to that narrative. That narrative says, oh no, you should be strategizing. Oh yeah, you need to be ready. Get ready, because next time you see them or you're here or whatever the case may be. No, you're perpetuating that. And it's the state of being that matches that. Birds of a feather flock together. Words and actions match states of being, which match outcomes. All right, so I want to thank you for coming to A Mindful Life. Peace out.